My car was stolen the very night I moved into my new house in a very good neighborhood. The neighbors had warned us that the neighborhood was being targeted at the time. They mentioned a woman around the corner that opened the door for knockers in the middle of the night and they attacked her and robbed her and almost killed her. We had reported the car stolen and did the police reports when it happened. Well, 2 nights later in the middle of the night I hear a knock on the door and they said open up, it's the police. Well, since I had heard the story about the other lady, I was suspicious and did not answer. I grabbed my kids and put them in my daughter's room because it had access to the roof from the window. I called the police to say that 2 men claiming to be police are pounding on my door. They said there was no police in the area and they are sending a car. Turns out, these same guys stole the car and came back for seconds. I did get my car back because they brought it with. How nice of them. Hope they brought it back with a full tank of gas too. Was riding my bike home from a friend's house when I was a young teen, over 20 years ago. We had both lost track of time, so it was dusk when I left. Lived about a mile away. Was traveling down one of the last roads to get home when I had this weird feeling, so I turned around to look back down the road. Saw headlights pass, stop, back up and turn on the road I was on. It was a pretty long road without many houses and no street lights or anything. As soon as they turned I bolted into the woods and hid pretty far in. The car slowly drove by and kept going. No idea what they were doing, but I didn't want anything to do with it. When I was hiking in the woods and I saw a baby bear, I slowly turned and walked quickly away from the bear because I'm not getting eaten. I had to drag my friend along with me because he didn't understand why we needed to return the way we came from. I was camping with a friend in a backwoods camping area, not very many sites and they were all super spaced out. We had already been there one night, had the site fully set up, we had been hiking all day, the works. We drove into town to get some food, and when we were driving back to our secluded campsite we passed a man walking out of the only road to our site. We both locked eyes with him, and I got a super creeped out feeling. He stared at us, like he knew us and hated us, but we had never seen him in our lives. When we got to our tent we went inside and everything we had in there was tossed. Our bags were dumped out, and our clothes were thrown everywhere. We quickly realized both our hunting knives were gone, along with a bunch of our clothes. We also realized it had to be that guy we saw. There were no other sites or hiking paths he could been walking from besides ours. We jumped in the car and drove back towards where we had seen him. He was gone. We drove a bit further and found a common area where other campers were gathered. We sprinted down and asked, have any of you seen this guy? And described him. The people at the gathering just stared at us and didn't speak, giving us an even more creeped out feeling. It was at that point that I told my friend we need to leave this place right now. Walking back to our car we looked over the edge of a guardrail and saw all our stolen clothes in the woods. We gathered them up, but didn't find either of our knives. Knowing this guy was still out there with those knives and that no one around us cared freaked us out so much. We packed the car up and ended our camping trip early. No way were we staying out in those woods one more night. I was at a party my freshman year of college and some seedy people were present. The night was getting very tense, but no fights or anything happened. As the night went on it became very clear to me something was going to happen. I told my friend it was time to leave. No more than 5 minutes after we left someone was stabbed and the stabber was shot. When I was a preteen a strange man stopped and asked me for directions. That didn't make sense. As I'm trying to help him a van rolls up and the side door opens. I just booked it and never looked back. Damn, I had a similar experience when I was 14. I was walking home from school when a creepy older guy pulled over his work van, got out, was asking me for directions to a well-known local place, and feigning like he didn't understand what I was saying, in an obvious attempt to draw out the conversation. So that alone set off alarm bells in my head, but then he kept looking around the whole time, and I knew he was about to try something. Some lady happened to be walking from her house to her car, so I yelled out, "Hey mom, can you come here and help give this guy directions?" Surprisingly, the lady actually came over, and as she did, she yelled something like, "Your father and your big brothers will be out in a minute. Are you ready to go?" He looked panicked, quickly got back into his car and took off. Once he left, that lady told me she knew what was up and made sure I was okay before letting me use her phone to call the cops. Turns out I wasn't the only girl he tried to lure/abduct. My faith in humanity was both damaged and restored that day. And invited me in. He was super hot. Was on a second date with a guy who wanted to stop at his house to grab my finger on. We get to his house, and it was just creepy. He was well off, and the house itself was gorgeous, spotless, and totally sterile. Nothing on the walls, every surface empty. No books, no CDs, nothing. I asked how long he'd lived there, and he said 5 years. While he was in the kitchen, he then asked me to go into his room, grab something, keys I think, from the top drawer in his dresser. I got the coldest chill up my spine and immediately stepped closer to the front door. There was no way I was letting him come between me and the exit. He asked me again to go to his room, and I laughed and said, "No dude, I'm hungry, let's go." He asked one more time, visibly annoyed at this point, and I proceeded to pretend that I was a bit*hystup*d girl and made a fuss about being hungry and what the h*ll was taking him so long. He was pissed. So I walked out of his house down the sidewalk and made him follow me. We got to the car, and I kept pretending to be a bit*hy clueless chick and demanded he take me home. He did. In cold furious silence. Then, when he stopped the car in front of my place, he grabbed my face to kiss me goodbye. He bit my lip so hard I was bleeding, and he reached under my shirt and twisted my nipple. I luckily got him off me, falling out my door, and ran inside to the sound of him laughing. I ended up with a bruised face and nipple, cut lip, and was scared that he knew where I lived, but I still feel like I survived a legit serial killer. I was driving my friend and I back from a bar on the way to our roundabout in the middle of nowhere small town NC. At some point early on, a car turns into the road behind us, and it's dark and like 2 AM, so I don't think anything of it. They're also driving super close to me, but I'm not about to speed due to road rage pressure. They chill out on tailgating, and the longer we're on the road, the farther we get from civilization, and it is very unusual for another car to be going out the way we are. So about half a mile from our end, I pull off to a side street and let the car pass. Then we wait 5 minutes, turn around to get back on our road, and lo and behold the car is just sitting there waiting for us. So we noped the F out, and now I'm flooring it back to town to the bar so we can get to safety. I do a rolling stop through a stop sign and the car finally turns its cop lights on and pulls me over. Dude has the audacity to ask me why I ran a stop sign, and I just go off on him about how *ing terrifying it is to be stalking 2 college girls who don't live in this state all the way back on the 25-minute drive home from the bar. I'm literally on the phone with 911 when he pulls us. Cop looks real apologetic and lets us off with a warning for what I don't *ing know, saying that he thought we saw he was a cop and that people usually turn off onto side streets like we did when they are trying to avoid cops and blah blah blah.